Welcome to NFL Daily, where we always live in fear of the blue screen of death. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, and Patrick Claybon is playing hurt today without a working laptop.
Yeah, it's been a good run. They wanted to replace it with a product that I will not name. I don't know if I can.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I want to ride with this one until it's dead.
Oh.
It's dead, Greg.
I've never seen a blue screen of death with a frowny face on it. That's another level of tech hell.
It really captures the feeling about the moment.
It really is on there. So, yes, this is going to be a vibes type of show, not necessarily facts.
Yeah, don't check my stats.
That's where we're going in the studio, in this country. Let's do some breaking news right off the top.
Oh, this is a fun surprise. Who is it, Greg?
The Tennessee Titans have signed Tim Boyle
Yes!
at quarterback.
It's about time they had invested the position.
The vibes are strong today. They're energetic.
Because I'm getting my Tim Boyle news, Greg.
Yeah, on the show we put up Wednesday morning, I had to go to the top of it and do the breaking news of Russ and Stephon Diggs. And later in that show, we did some play acting, and the Titans talked about how the only other veteran quarterback other than Will Levis on the roster was Brandon Allen. So clearly they're taking Cam Ward, but now they've added Tim Boyle.
And so a lot of you might look at Tim Boyle's career accomplishments and say, what does this actually mean? Clearly, Tim Boyle is a good dude.
Yes.
Tim Boyle matters in a locker room in a capacity that I don't necessarily have access to, but I think we have enough evidence to show that there is something that is being brought, and whatever that is being brought to the Tennessee Titans in 2025.
Hartford's finest, made his first start, I believe, on Thanksgiving, or at least his first prolonged appearance for the Lions back in the day. And yeah, he's still kicking around. The second most prominent UConn quarterback behind Dan Orlovsky. Not a lot of news today, but we'll roll through what we got, and then we're going to do screaming needs of every NFC team. Both Nick Shook and I did the AFC earlier in the week, and we will do the NFC here.
That's why I got coffee today.
To scream. Okay. We talked rules committee and all the proposals that the teams had a week ago. We've talked about some of the ones that the NFL was going to put forward over the month, but officially the rules committee put out the proposals. And if you're not familiar with this time of year, generally the proposals that they put out go through. Not all of them, but I would say it's like 2/3, 3/4. So if it comes from the league, they'll officially vote on it next week. And the couple things that we didn't know yet that I wanted to mention that were new and interesting to me were, number one, if you kick the ball into the end zone on the dynamic kickoff, the ball, when you get a touchback, will go out to the 35-yard line. Also, as part of that, they want to make the dynamic kickoff permanent. That thing is just going to stick around. Before it was year by year, but it's going to go out to the 35. What do you think?
I like it. I am still of the belief that we can change the landing zone and make that a free ball and bring onside kicks back just a little bit.
Okay.
To where a team has an opportunity. That's the last change to the dynamic kickoff where that I would like to see is ball hits ground.
Where, like free. Inside the 20 and then it's a free ball, or what?
Yeah, it's something that it would be very easy, right, for the other team, but there would be a chance, right? You get a wiggly kick and there's some sort of chance. That's what I would like to see.
They did update the onside kick rules. Now you can go for an onside kick any time of the game if you're trailing. The rule before, under this for 1 year, was that you could only do it in the fourth quarter. Onside kick is a play that's kind of died because there's no element of surprise anymore because of the dynamic kickoff. That'll be the same whether you do it in the second quarter or the fourth, but you could do it earlier in the game if you want. But yeah, that touchback going to the 35, I think we will see a lot more kickoffs next year. 35 is like such good field position. That's a 20-yard gain from field goal range.
And it adds a layer of specialization because you got your guys that were brought up to boom it.
Yeah.
And then you have your guys that, I mean, it's all the horizontal and vertical aspects of kicking field goals. Now there's a depth aspect to it where you want the ball to land at a certain angle at a certain distance. And I think it may change kicking a little bit.
You got to pop that. You got to pop that thing up.
But not,
like Adam Vinatieri back in the day, he wasn't great on kickoffs regardless. Desmond Howard made a lot of money off that, but he couldn't hit that pop up. No way. He didn't have the leg for it.
Well, and guys don't want when you're paid to make those kicks, you don't want to change your stroke
right?
To go out there and it's like, you're trying to hit a pitching wedge at Augusta, and it's like, hey, you got a long drive every other hole. Guys will be scared to do that.
More punters doing it. And then the thing I did, like expanded replay assist now for picking up flags on bad calls, and the specific ones, they're calling them subjective, not objective. Like 2 words where I always have to think about, which means which for some reason. I have a learning disability on that one. But you can pick up the flag potentially from above on the replay assist for hits on defensive list players. So that includes roughing the passer. So it's basically bad roughing the passer calls could get overturned, but also face masks, horse collars, tripping, roughing the kicker. I like that. I want to expand it even more. I would say let's do a little more, but that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and just some clarity, because when replay assist does happen and it happens quickly, it's so seamless and it's so good that people are always left with, wait, hey, that's great. Like
right.
let's do that more. And I think we could get more of that if they'd be more open with, hey, what happened when I believe there was a playoff game and it was a bad spot, and all of a sudden the ball was back in the right spot.
Right.
And it's like, hey, yeah, let's just do that all the time.
Right. It's been happening a lot. I think it's actually been a subtle yet dramatic change in the game over the last 2 years, especially last year. So I like that a lot, because those are some of the worst calls that happen. And then finally, we have some media news. Andrew Marchand of The Athletic reports that there's a new number 2 team at CBS. I'm always into this reporting. It's very important because these men and women, but let's be real, it's mostly men. They affect my Sundays in a great way, the quality of the broadcast team. And we're losing one of my favorites, Charles Davis, off the number 2 team at CBS, and it's going to be Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt as the number 2 team. But the good news for Charles Davis, he's going to be the number 1 college football guy in 2026 because Gary Danielson is retiring. That's his name, right?
Yeah, it's
yes.
Gary D.
Okay, sorry. And you just looked at me funny. And I don't know what Charles Davis is going to do in 2025. They haven't announced that yet. But it's got to be J.J. Watt, who I thought was pretty good on the Netflix game. We'll see. It's hard to make that determination, but he was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a few years removed from the ideal situation where Charles would have been able to call those SEC on CBS games with his beloved Tennessee Volunteers. But yeah, congratulations to Gary on a great career, and the college football folks are going to love Charles Davis because everybody loves Charles Davis.
Let's look at a tweet. I just thought this tickled my fancy on Wednesday. I hope J.J. Watt asked for permission from Ian Eagle to send their tweets back and forth, and Ian's very funny on the Twitter exchange, and I don't want to go through all of it. My main takeaway here was, though, learning that Ian Eagle signs all of his texts with an emoji for an eagle. That's amazing.
No, yeah, shout out to Big Bird on that. And is that a reference to that influencer?
Yes,
dude?
Yes. I'm doing a poor job narrating this, but Ian's making fun of JJ for how he's preparing for games, and JJ asks, how do you normally prepare? And he whips out the banana and the Saratoga water. So Ian not only like an old guy move to sign every text with your name, but instead it's an emoji, which is incredible. But also he knows the hip.
He's
meme.
aware of the current memes, and that's a psyop, by the way. Everything is rage bait now, and this dude has captivated everybody's attention by being hokey.
Yes,
and it's working for him.
Yeah,
so he's gonna keep doing it. So it's just
the guy who does the timestamps and he jumps in the pool at 3:36, then he hits the water at 3:40.
Yeah, it's like that meme of the guy's like, I have 48 hours in one day. It's like that, except taken to the next level, and this dude's black. So like, I guess shout out to him, but it's the psyop. It's all fake. Patrick is always here to just bring us back down to earth. But yes, when he sent out another one where it was the same thing where he's messing with the timestamps, I was with you. And if you don't know what we're talking about, God bless you. Congratulations.
It doesn't really matter.
You don't want to be in here with us.
We'll see if any other major news happens. But Tim Boyle, they're taking Cam Ward. I mean, they really are telegraphing it now. The NFL can do what they want. There's been reporting in the past where they've told the team with the number 1 pick, hey, try not to say it publicly, try not to give it away publicly. They've given it away to me. I guess you never know. Like maybe the Saints, there's been some buzz, give up 3 first-round picks, including this year's. They give up number 9 and then their next 2 first-round picks to move from 9 to 1. Would Tennessee think about taking that? They might think about it. Would the Saints do it? I think they'd be desperate enough to do it. Who knows? So I'm not going to totally close the door, but it sure seems like they could give him Derek Carr too.
Hey,
I didn't even think of that.
Mickey, are you listening? Maybe not.
Well, with the Callahan was with Derek Carr. That's actually not that crazy. Would the Titans take 3 1s and Derek Carr for the number 1 overall pick?
Whatever. 9. Excuse me. It was 10 before.
Yeah, that is Mickey Loomis back in February 9th.
Yeah, Mickey would offer 2 1s,
draft pick?
And then it's like, I don't know, and then Derek gets thrown in, and then there's a conversation, and there's a little back and forth, and then on draft night, it happens as first reported by NFL Network's Gregg Rosenthal.
I love it. I think the Saints are just desperate enough to do that. That would be fun. All right, we're going to go through all 16 NFC teams here, including the Saints. And we're going to start in the NFC East. We're going to put 2 minutes on the clock. If we don't need all 2 minutes, we don't have to use all 2 minutes. But 2 minutes for every team. These are screaming needs heading into NFL draft season. And I will kick us off with the Dallas Cowboys. Put it on the clock. I think the biggest need is wide receiver. It's not a team looking at it, especially on the defensive side, that I think actually has a ton of screaming needs, which is a good thing. You could argue running back, certainly. You hate to go into a draft like needing a running back. I think they'll take one in the first 3 rounds. Offensive line, they need to build for now and the future. And yet the gulf between CeeDee Lamb and the second best weapon on this team is so massive, whether it's running back or Jake Ferguson or Jalen Tolbert, that I think that is their biggest need. And that's why smart people like Daniel Jeremiah are mocking a wide receiver to them with that number 12 overall pick.
Yeah, it's to the point where the backup running back / special teams pro, arguably the best special teams player in the game, is like their second best skill position guy.
Kevontae Turpin.
Yeah, Kevontae Turpin.
And the thing is, Jalen Tolbert showed last year, he's fine as a rotation guy. I think he got 600 yards just out of volume alone.
1 minute.
Oh, I like that in here. But he's in a contract year. That was the reason why I gave the edge to wide receiver, because they might not sign him long term, so they really don't have anyone long term. Turpin's on a 1-year deal, I believe. The other option here would be right tackle, Terrence Steele, right guard. Like, they still need to fix that offensive line, and so sure, like most teams, they could use another cornerback, but I actually think the defense, they're not screaming needs. They're just kind of building what's already a pretty strong group.
Yeah, and if we're going to evoke the copycat league mantra that you saw Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, like you need another guy opposite the guy.
I don't think it's going to be Jonathan Mingo, who they gave up a draft pick.
Yeah, that was weird.
In this class 4. That's not going to age well. They've taken some mid to late round shots. Flournoy last year. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, let's move on to our second team, the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, they were able to upgrade at left tackle, get Marshawn Lattimore last season, but they were absolutely torched by a Birds team that really torched everybody. So there is a screaming need at edge rusher. Dorrance Armstrong is a nice piece, unless the thinking is Jalen Holmes is going to have this kind of growth. Even if he does, depth would be nice. Picking at 29 makes it tough, but there's guys like Donovan Ezekiel-Aru who might drop down there, Michael Williams. But it's a need, and it's thankfully the only one that's screaming to me because the team did get better in free agency.
That your scream got a big reaction in the back there from Babona. Are you ready to commit to this?
Yeah, no, we're doing it
for the next 18.
That's what the caffeine's for.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see if you scream the word screaming every time, or whether you scream their names or the position or what it is. Edge, yeah. Dorrance Armstrong, good player. You look at who they signed in free agency. I kind of forgot they signed Dietrich Wise and Jacob Martin and Cleveland Farrell. Those are just a bunch of guys. This is a team that needs to get better up front, and they spent a lot of money on Javon Kinlaw, which surprised me. They're pretty good on the interior. Other than that, yeah, I think that is their screaming need. I only wrote down one thing.
Well, so he was almost any play. You could pick any play for the fourth quarter. The Falcons would have won the Super Bowl. That was with Brooks Reed as the best edge, right? Then he goes to be the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, and he inherits this otherworldly talent as well as another good piece in DeMarcus.
Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan Quinn gets another good piece in DeMarcus Lawrence. And now the Commanders were kind of in this middle place where he's figuring it out with mixed talent. He still wants that edge, and I think that's where they go. It's the right move.
You can't fix everything in one offseason, or now it's even 2 for this regime, but they've done a great job. I like their offseason a little better the more I looked at it. All right, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking of great defenses. And I was wrong about the Philadelphia Eagles, by the way. I thought they were going to take some big swings this offseason, and they didn't at all.
How are we doing it again?
It was the total opposite. They were actually playing the compensatory pick game. You can tell some teams really load up on it certain seasons, and they might get some 3s, some 4s back because good people have left the building. So they're a team that has most everything. I would say edge is probably their biggest need as well, which sounds weird, but you think about who's still there. Nolan Smith is a returning starter and an emerging player. After that, they have depth. They signed Josh Uche. They signed Azeez Ojulari. They have Bryce Huff still on the roster. Maybe they can scrape some value out of him. So they have players there, but do they have anyone other than Nolan Smith who they're kind of like, hey, that's going to be a dude for us for more than a year or two? I don't think they do. And the way they think, I think they'll think that's their biggest need.
Yeah, they've always had the ability to rotate guys and have guys get a lot of like rush snaps and bring them in. But you still need to have those folks that you can count on if the drives last a little bit longer, right? If there's not a situation where you're getting off the field consistently all the time, and it feels like there's a bunch of parts, but never that guy other than Nolan Smith, who has really been a part guy up until this point.
Right, until the middle of last season, he really came on. Man, for his size, one of the strongest players like per pound in the NFL. They have a lot of guys like going up a level in terms of their secondary, so I think they could add some more pieces there to kind of fill in for the future. Like Sidney Brown, Keely Ringo, those guys are now probably starters, so maybe you draft a safety. But yeah, I think they will look at edge. And yeah, they didn't take those swings like I expected this offseason. Kind of retrenched. All right, you got the Giants.
The New York Giants. Okay. Full disclosure, I'm basing team needs off of what I think they need to do to win with the roster, not necessarily on somebody keeping their job.
You're also working off your phone now because the blue screen of death with the frowny faces on your computer.
The needs of the secondary have been addressed. I think there's also a need for Shadur Sanders specifically.
Yes.
But if they think it's not going to happen, there is a screaming need for talent on the interior of either one of the lines. Dexter Lawrence is one thing in the Joe Shane era. He's not drafted on the interior of the lines inside of the 4th round for his entire tenure. That's going back to 2022. Wow. They acquired John Runyon last year, but it's a screaming need to me because it's an area of deficiency that has continued to not really be addressed. And it'd be one thing if the guys they took at these other spots were working out. They're not. And so it's really leaping out to me that that's a place. Yeah, there's other parts, but this is the one that they need to fix now.
1 minute.
Tyrone Tracy is part of a very good 2024 class. I just want to,
shout out to him.
Defend Joe Shane a little bit.
Let's defend Joe Shane.
With Neighbors, and Tyler Nubin looks like he can play a little bit.
You and I would have drafted Neighbors.
Drew Phillips. Yeah, no, absolutely right. I totally agree. Interior defensive line. When Dexter Lawrence got hurt, it was one of those cases, which is always stupid, but it's true, where it's like, hey, his defensive player of the year candidacy actually went up after he got hurt. Because when you took Dexter Lawrence off their team, they were one of the worst run defenses you've ever seen if it wasn't for the 2024 Panthers. Those were the two of the worst run defenses
and the
ever.
only reason the Panthers were legendarily bad.
Right.
So the Giants were awful.
Yeah, I think that's it. Although quarterback is still a massive need. Because Jamison Russell are short-term solutions, so it's still a massive need.
Yeah, it's get the quarterback. I think that they make a move to get Shadur. That's what I would do. Who knows if it saves either of their jobs, but who cares? That's what the Giants need.
The more we sit with this, the less I think maybe he'll even be there. Whether the Browns take him or the Saints, like I was talking, trade up to 2. They need something to save their job. So I'm really in on this. Saints are going to maybe do something crazy. Let's go with the Green Bay Packers. I will start off the NFC North. And I think the needs are on defense, and I think they start at cornerback. Now, this Jair Alexander situation is just kind of hanging out there. The longer it goes on, the more you have to wonder, maybe they will just bring him back, because if he's healthy, he is the best cornerback on the roster. That said, even if he is on the roster, their next best cornerback is Keyshawn Nixon? I don't know who. Nate Hobbs, I guess they signed in free agency and is a good player, more of a nickelback. But in terms of an outside cornerback, they don't really have the guys. And it's a blind spot for Goody, because I look at the offense. And yeah, you could draft for the future in terms of their offensive line. They've been fantastic doing that. And they have a lot of guys coming up for free agency next year. And so they'll probably plan ahead. But actually, they're pretty set on offense. They could add, and they're not going to ignore it, but really it's defense. It's cornerback 1, and then like a lot of these teams, edge would be number 2 for me, but to me it's in the secondary. And Gutekunst, he's put a lot of resources in the draft on the defense with pretty mixed results. At this point, it's now a long list of players that they've drafted that haven't exactly lived up to their draft billing.
Yeah, including finding a corner opposite of Jair for these years. And I understand if the ding for you is Jair hasn't played very much. Well, the guys that either replaced Jair or played on the other side of him, they haven't been able to get consistent play there at all. And so if you remove Jair from the situation and he becomes a value add for somebody else, and you've had difficulty acquiring this position in the first place, how does that ultimately make you better in the long run, other than not paying somebody? Which, like, okay, it's not our money.
Do you want to know something that flipped my mind, and maybe it explains why Jair is still on the team, and maybe he'll stay? I believe he was Brian Gutekunst's first ever draft pick. I can't believe Goody's been there that long. He has now been there since 2018. And that's when Jair entered the team. So maybe he wants to keep the band together.
He should.
It was his last great cornerback pick, so he wants to keep him.
I think he should.
All right, you are up with the Chicago Bears. What is their screaming need?
Okay, so we just talked about Jacob Martin being a commander. He got 213 snaps at edge last year. DeMarcus Walker got released back in February. That's another 500-plus snaps on the edge on the other side of the D-line. They're in a division with Gibbs, Montgomery, Jacobs. How long do you want Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson running around back there? There is a screaming need for a talented edge opposite Montez Sweat to set edges and bother quarterbacks. I love that they've addressed the offensive line, but they're going to need some more pass rush. I know they improved on the interior in the pass rush capacity and free agency.
Yes.
Get an edge.
They got Dio Odengbo. Mm-hmm. But not a guy who's going to help you stop the run. And in one of the riskier signings, him and Jarrett really, in general, Grady Jarrett, I think everyone's giving flowers to Ryan Poles. It's Ryan Poles season. If they go 1 for 2 there, that'll be great. I just think they're both risky moves, and I'm with you because Sweat is a long-term guy, but you want to think about who are their guys on the defensive line. And really, in terms of draft picks, right now it's Gervon Dexter, and that's about it.
Yeah. And again, like, I hate to hinge on the point about the running games and the rest of the division, but there was a point in this offseason where I'm like, well, what would if Khalil Mack got back to Chicago?
Ooh.
Like that would be what they needed. And of course, Khalil elected to stay here in sunny Southern California. Good for him. But of course, you'd love to have that sort of talent. But a player who can fulfill that role, and they elected, that's where DeMarcus Walker was last year. That's why he was playing so much, and I'm wondering what they're going to do to replace him.
Yeah, and I don't think they're done fixing the offensive line. They could certainly take a left tackle. They could certainly take another guard. People that are just assuming Jonah Jackson is like going to be Detroit Lions healthy. Jonah Jackson coming off a bust of a year. I don't think the Bears are assuming that long term either. So they could look to bulk up their running game a little bit. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. Do it. We haven't gone overtime, I don't think, at all. I had a pretty clear screaming need for the Vikings because it's a really good roster, but they need a cornerback. And they could use 2 cornerbacks. And they did a good job this offseason getting some placeholders. And by that, I mean like free agents who come in and they just upgrade the overall talent level. It's a tough defense to figure out in terms of Brian Flores. And so you bring in Isaiah Rodgers. He's a guy who's been around. He's been with the Eagles. You give him some money. Jeff Okuda's on this team now. Tavier Thomas. Like, these guys have taken snaps in the NFL. That's great. You're not the worst cornerback room in the league or anything anymore. But other than bringing back Byron Murphy, you have Mekhi Blackman, who's coming off a serious injury. And so you don't, again, have kind of draft pick guys that are going to be there long term. And it's amazing because you look at that, all those names I just said, and it doesn't sound like a screaming need. And that's really a credit to this Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi build, because they are ahead of schedule. They were good so much faster than you would have expected. This is the year where you would have expected, okay, it's all coming together now, like year 3 with Flores, for instance, as the defensive guy. And it's a good roster. Like, they're one of the better rosters in the league.
And even the things that didn't immediately pay off, like the trade up for Dallas Turner, right? There's a chance did you get growth in that position, which would be a huge value add in 2025, where I'm peeking over at your list of teams, and I'm like, well, I'm wondering what Gregg is going to say is the screaming need for the Minnesota.
Yeah, they don't really have one. Entering the offseason, even after the last game against the Rams, Kevin O'Connell, who doesn't usually do this, at the podium said, we need to fix our interior offensive line, which was just like a shot across the bow on, I think, a couple players. Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Reisner, like those guys are ex-Vikings. And they have addressed that. They signed Ryan Kelly. They signed Will Fries, both of the Colts last year. I actually think they could add more to that position because Kelly's not a long-term guy, and they have Blake Brendel, I believe, at left guard. So that could be the other one if we're looking. All right, you got the Detroit Lions, another very good roster in the best division in football.
Yeah, and the Lions brought in a big free agent corner. I know they drafted a first-round cornerback a year ago, and I know Amik Robertson had the game of his life in the game of the century. They still have a screaming need in the secondary. To me, the Eagles showed how important valuable depth is in that position, and I was dangerously close to saying yet another team had a needed edge here, and it would be nice to have, but I feel like they need that depth in the secondary to get another corner.
Yeah, it's tricky for the teams that don't really have screaming needs. It almost makes fun of us. But this is the best place to be as an organization. I probably would lean edge. So right now they have Aiden Hutchinson, obviously coming off the injury, and then you have Josh Paschal and Marcus Davenport and some guys like Al-Qaid Muhammad who's contributed. But
like I'm pretty sure statistically he was one of their better edge runners.
He was good.
Al Muhammad.
Yeah. And then they have a bunch of interior guys that can kind of go a little bit of inside and out, but no one you really trust there. But yeah, I think they need to refresh that offensive line. I think they think like the Eagles too, where it wouldn't shock me at all for them to take a first-round offensive lineman, because if you look at it, they don't really it's getting older. Like Penei Sewell's not a guy that you worry about at all, but other than that, Ragnow, Glasgow, Taylor Decker, those guys have all been on the team since 2018 or 2016.
They're the identity.
I know,
it's tough to say goodbye to one of the most fun teams.
You're not saying goodbye. You just start drafting their eventual replacements, and if they stick around, like Cam Jurgens had to wait for Jason Kelsey, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice to have. But watching the defense get hurt and fall apart, it's hard to not say they just need bodies over there.
That's absolutely true.
They just need bodies.
They could maybe still use another receiver. Jameson Williams, it's his fifth-year option is going to come up next year. Just a thought. Let's take a quick break. We've done the NFC North. We've done the NFC East. We are covering every team in the NFC today with 16 screaming news. Yeah! Back on NFL Daily. It's short sleeve sweater season. Everyone who's into the YouTube side of it, like, subscribe, check us out there, and check out the short sleeve. What do they call that? Like cable knit sweater?
Yeah, I don't even know.
I can't pull that off.
Your shirt is awesome.
I do like this shirt. I haven't worn it a lot, but I can't pull that off.
You can. I think you can crush it.
I need to do some 340 jumping into the pool to get to there. Let's do the screaming needs in the NFC South. Why don't we have Patrick lead us off here? We started the show talking a little Saints, so why don't we start the NFC South with the New Orleans Saints?
Okay, so the Saints have needs all over the roster, which may be a blessing in disguise, as Mickey Loomis has kind of had a tendency to overdraft on need after that legendary 2017 draft where everything turned out great. But once again, there's a screaming need at the edge to get some talent to rush the passer in this division where Atlanta's gotten better. The Panthers have gotten better. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers score 1 billion points a game. It was honestly hard to pick, but it's just such a big part of defense in 2025 that I have to go edge once again.
Yeah, they were a bad team rushing the passer. I think they overpaid for Chase Young. They did take a second-round pick. Off the top of your head, can you remember who the second-round pass rusher the Saints took in 2023? I don't know if he's been mentioned on this show since the draft.
1 minute.
Saints fans know who I'm talking about. I don't want. Why am I being
Parisi?
No, Brees's been solid as. No, I don't even know if solid's the word. He's been okay as a first round pick. Isaiah Foskey.
Oh yeah,
who just
Jonathan
hasn't
Foss.
been able to get to the field for them. So that makes sense. And yet, like, no one's ever been on the last year of his deal more than Derek Carr is on the last year of his deal there. So quarterback to me is a massive, massive need. And so is cornerback quietly. Like, even, you think they've always had a bunch of cornerbacks, but suddenly Lattimore's not there, Adebo's not there. They could certainly use a cornerback. And then, like, Trevor Penning's still there at right tackle. I don't know. That's not really a long-term thing. Like, guards, you're right. There really isn't a position on the roster they could not stand to improve.
And it's a great spot to be in to just stick and pick, because whoever they take is probably going to be a huge value add to this team.
And yet, I kind of don't think they are.
Because you think they move up and take Shador if he gets past what team?
Maybe even just get him at 2. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, but it just makes sense to me. And the Browns trading down would make sense. Let's do the Atlanta Falcons next, the big-time rivals of the Saints. And we're repeating ourselves a lot on this show. And it's a good class for edge. I don't know if the top shelf guys are there, but if you're a team like the Falcons, I think this is a good class to have a huge edge need, because they're in the middle of the first round. I think at that point, it's just take what you need, and you'll have your pick of a handful of different guys who are all first round worthy, and we're just back in that phase of Atlanta Falcons season, which is we need an edge season, which is every season, every offseason.
25 years.
It's really crazy. And I thought they would be more active in free agency, and their big move was signing Leonard Floyd for more money than he made for the 49ers. They've had a weird one. They're kind of playing the compensatory pick game, I think. I don't know. Who's gone out of the building?
They're playing this waiting game with Cousins and kind of just sitting free agency out, essentially.
More or less. And they just restructured a couple contracts. We're taping this on Wednesday, and they restructured a few more to open up a bunch of cap space. People are like, oh, now they're going to sign guys. I was like, well, yeah, no.
All the guys are gone.
Wait, what? I mean, they could be like a second-level team, but really all their needs are on defense. Defensive backs certainly would be an option, and either position in the secondary. They do need a center now, I think, after they let Drew Dahlman go, so that could be an option.
Yeah, as rosters elsewhere are getting better with your players, right?
Right.
It should be time, and perhaps not that it's scraping the bottom of the barrel. Some guys have been a little more patient, waiting out and trying to find the right spot. There's talent out there. I mentioned DeMarcus Walker earlier, who got some good run last year in Chicago. Maybe that's an option. There is some talent left available on the street that maybe the Falcons.
I believe we have 16 or 17 players from my top 101.
That's 17%.
I think we're down to only 4 in the top 50, by the way. Amari Cooper, Asante Samuel Jr., Aaron Rodgers, who was a late ad, and Calais Campbell. The only 4 in the top 60, in fact. You have the Panthers wrapping up the NFC South. No, I have the division champion Bucks after that. So I take that back. You have the Panthers.
I will take the Panthers. The Panthers head coach, former team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need defensive help at multiple positions, but I believe the screaming need is actually at the linebacker position for a franchise that had legends at off ball. A couple of them playing at the same time, and Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. You can make the case that the offense needs some more speed or some help at edge. The whole plane is kind of built on Jadeveon Clowney at this point in his career, right? There's Ashawn Robinson on the interior. They're getting old there. But if you want to add talent on defense and a playmaker that the fan base can identify with, I think there's off-ball options inside of that top 10 that can help the Carolina Panthers and also may contribute to the edge as well.
Yeah. Jahad Campbell is who you're talking about? Or Jalen Walker?
Either one. Like, honestly, that's the type of player, a guy that can run and make plays, and the defense can come on the field, and there can be somebody that the fans can identify with and celebrate. At off ball, the growth period is a little bit longer. It may take longer to see those results, but you'll eventually get them.
And they both good pass rushers, and I can really see them fitting in a Giro Evero defense where he's moving the guy back and forth. A little bit better of a Michael Hoyt type of guy who Evero was with back with the Rams. I like that. I see a lot of similarities in terms of the roster construction between the Panthers and the Falcons, which is just they need help everywhere on defense. You know, like I get you've been focused on the offense. We could even argue is more important, maybe a little more important in terms of team building. But it's too one-sided. And both Raheem as the head coach in the Falcons and then Evero as the coordinator with the Panthers, I think they could use some help.
Yeah, and you wonder how much fit played into just how categorically awful things were last year. And you know, this is it. I feel like for Evero, if it's not this season and there's similar results, then there would have to be.
I mean, they didn't even let him leave. He was trying to leave a couple times, it sounded like.
Well, I see why.
Right. I got the Bucks, and I think it's going to be a recurring theme this offseason. I really love this team. I thought they would be very good last year, and then they were. So anyone that proves me right, I'm going to like even more. I think this is one of the best rosters in the entire NFL. If I hate to say it, if they had a slightly better quarterback, I think they'd be like in the
all that we've been through.
I think they'd be in the inner circle of
You're gonna make him try
Super
even
Bowl
harder.
contenders. When I said that, the back room just started cheering. They love the Baker hate. It's not hate. He's great.
Rewind 15
You talked
seconds.
to their GM and talked about how like you saw scenarios where they won the Super Bowl 2
Right,
weeks ago. 3
exactly.
weeks ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, he's saying Baker Mayfield is kind of like this. It's like a quantum superposition where things could be great, but Gregg also sees them going categorically awful.
No,
both at the same time.
No. I think they would be in the inner circle of Super Bowl favorites if like Justin Herbert was their quarterback. Let's say. If it was like a slightly like that.
If you replace Baker Mayfield with Lamar Jackson or Justin
Well, I
Herbert.
was trying to come up with a guy who was like 6'10". Yeah. Well, I think that would be true. We've spent half our time not getting to the need because, look, they could add depth everywhere. They're in a great position. Off-ball linebacker. You just mentioned it for the Panthers. This actually is the one real need here. Levante David is coming off his worst season, I believe, as a pro, but they brought him back. That's great. They brought in Anthony Walker as a free agent. They have Cervosia Dennis, who I don't know much about at the other off-ball. So that's the spot. I think they will want to develop someone at that position, whether it's in round 1 or round 3. That's a position I think they will be drafting. Other than that, I think they're in a great spot where they're just picking best player available.
Yeah, you started to get worried about the defense. I know Winfield, it felt like he was playing through something, didn't miss those games last season as well on top of that, where you'd like to see them get back to that Bulls defensive old, and I think that would do that.
Another team that could use an edge, but they did get Hassan Reddick back, and I like Yaya Diaby. They did draft a guy, Chris Braswell, in the second round last year. We haven't seen much out of him yet. Let's go to the last division, and I'll kick us off this time. I'm going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, and their needs are not as screaming as they were a couple years ago when this regime came over. For the most part, I think they've done a good job. I think they still need to fix their offensive line. And they have Jonah Williams coming off a major injury, but they really only have 2 guys that I look at when you look at the entire offensive line that you think are going to be part of the team long term, that they feel confident about. That's their left tackle, Paris Campbell, and that's their center, Froho, who they really like a lot. I believe they re-signed him, and it's turned into a nice gem for them. They've taken some guys in the middle rounds, and maybe they develop them, maybe they don't, but this is a team that wants to pound the rock, that kept their entire offense intact. They really didn't add anyone that's going to start. They have their a new backup quarterback, but I think they could use a new starter, maybe even 2 on the offensive line. And if I had to guess, like they have needs on their defense as well, but if I had to guess, they would view that internally maybe as their biggest need.
Yeah, I look to last season, right, where James Conner and Trey Benson got a little dinged up. The offensive line had its issues, and you kind of wondered, like, what was all the big part of that? I think it was a little bit of everything, right, that made the season kind of fall apart. But I think protection breakdowns, and we tend to watch Kyler running around and think, like, oh, that's him. Well, sometimes it was literally early pressure getting to Kyler where he wasn't able to fix it.
And I think the run blocking maybe was an even bigger problem from a team that we expected to be really good. I expected to go into this exercise saying edge would be, but it's not screaming because they have guys there. After adding Josh Sweat, they brought back Baron Browning. Zaven Collins has been good. Bujay Ojolari had a good rookie year, actually, and is coming off a major injury. It's more of the off-ball guys. I kind of expect Kaiser White will be back there at some point. He's still a free agent. He's one of the guys in my 101 that has not been signed. And famously, the defensive coordinator named his kid after Kaiser White.
Yeah.
So maybe that's making him a little tougher at the negotiating table.
Yeah, they have to hold on a little bit longer to try to make it look like this wasn't going to happen the whole time.
The Rams. Nice offseason for the Rams, getting a lot of love. And I agree with it all.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this one.
Well, yeah, they deserve the love. It starts by getting your generationally talented quarterback back, mending that particular relationship, building off the drafts that they have had, where I initially was thinking that there was a glaring need in the secondary, but no, it's in front of them. It is a glaring, screaming need at off-ball linebacker, where guys continue to leave and go other places and be valued there, including across the division, where Ernest Jones came to a team in midseason that has been successful there, where you can't keep doing this. Invest at the position in some capacity and then be loyal to the guy. To me,
I mean, they can, because they have, and they will. I mean, you're right. It's driving Rams fans crazy because it's not like the strategy has worked. It's always the weakness of their defense, and opponents in this division are always picking on it. And they lose their best guy from last year, Christian Roseboom, by the way, who, where is he? He's in Carolina now. I think he's in Carolina.
Yeah, I think he is.
So, they're not in a good spot there. I agree with you. And yet, I actually think cornerback, maybe not for this exercise, isn't as screaming because they have guys that can play. Darius Williams, Akella Weatherspoon, Quentin Lake, like veterans for the most part. But, man, it'd be good to develop some premier talent at that position that you think are like plus starters. They haven't really done that.
Yeah, I don't think they want to wait, and I honestly don't think that clearly they don't value the position, but when you've...
What position? Cornerback?
No, I'm
you're back on linebacker.
I'm back on linebacker. But, I mean, yeah, they've determined, right, that the pay structure doesn't necessarily work out to do these things. But I think they can. I think they could take some swings and get a veteran in at both positions.
Also, Rob Havenstein, drafted by the St. Louis Rams, still at right tackle. Gonna need to replace him at some point.
Address that.
That point is coming soon. San Francisco, the 49ers. Would you believe right now in Vegas, not just the division favorites, but I think tied for second in the first over-under win totals I saw put out there. Pretty weird. Surprising. A little too early to go over the over-under win totals. They were the easiest team for me that we did because I thought their screaming need. It was on the defensive line. I'd start at defensive tackle. That's my number one screaming need. It's one of the most lacking defensive tackle rooms in the entire NFL. Might be the most. Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and then a couple undrafted guys. Evan Anderson.
You made those names up?
No, Jordan Elliott's he's bounced around a little bit. At least I'm familiar with his work. Kevin Givens has played a little bit for them, and then a late round pick from 4 years ago, Kaliah Davis. So yeah, they really don't have any, and it's crazy because you think 49ers, you think defensive line, you think they've always developed that position well, and yet the second biggest need to me by far is defensive end. It's Bosa, you have one of the best players in the league, but after that, it's Drake Jackson, who hasn't worked out because of an injury, and maybe he gets better. But it's Gross Matos, who they brought in as a free agent. He didn't have a great year. So I think both those positions, but especially defensive tackle. They are one of the teams that, like, they're going to make that pick. In the first 2 rounds, they are taking a defensive tackle. I will put my name on it.
Gregg Rosenthal special, yes. 49ers, regardless of Kyle Shanahan's proclivities or John Lynch.
I just think it's going to happen.
I love it.
There's no one there.
I wondered how serious the double Bosa opportunity was, considering the financials there.
They reportedly made an offer, but it got blown out. They weren't even close to the Miami hour. So I think they were doing it for a certain number, which makes me think they could be like a Calais Campbell team. He would make sense for them.
Yeah, and the versatility of Calais Campbell, because you could kind of slide him inside at times where they have to bargain hunt. Maybe that's it.
Calais Campbell's in a good spot. At the end of the offseason every year, he just like kind of picks what contender. Now, he could have picked better than the Dolphins last year, but, he could join the Eagles, join the 49ers. All right, we'll wrap up this whole shebang with the Seattle Seahawks, my former team.
Yeah, and the person who made that decision One of them. Well, I'll just say the person who made that decision, John Schneider, at a newser this offseason said, you can't just throw money at marginal play with regards to their screaming need at interior offensive line that has been screaming at them for years. And if the idea is that you're throwing money at marginal play, well, all the other teams are throwing money at the guys who are coming in and visiting you and having conversations with you. So at what point is this addressed? Or you just send out Sam Darnold, who has had the pressure of the planet put on him, and the idea is being pushed out there to everybody. Well, this is Geno Smith, so you're going to get Geno Smith production out of Sam Darnold. You're going to send him on an absolute mission if you don't address this need, Greg.
You're absolutely right. I think Schneider feels more pressure to improve their offensive line in this draft than just about any GM has to improve any position. And yet he's not showing it on the outside too much.
He's got a secret plan.
He did mention multiple times that the new coaches like a lot of the guys I drafted, and they want to try to develop those guys. So Christian Haynes is a third-round pick from last year. Anthony Bradford is another guard who was a fourth-round pick a couple years ago. Oluwatimi played for them at center last year, was a fifth-round pick. And so some of these guys, Schneider's going to try to have Clint Kubiak and their new offensive line coach make them look smart. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, it's great if it works out, but then you wonder how bad the coaching situation was prior that these guys weren't having that success.
Well, the Ryan Grubb era will not be looked back fondly. I don't feel bad, but it just because I was excited. It seemed like he wanted to try some stuff, but it didn't work out for anyone. I don't think they maximized
apparently
the talent.
It was all Michael Penix. Like that's what I have learned in hindsight about last year, that Michael Penix Jr. was that dude at Washington. Like,
I think there's no question.
That was it. Got some people hired.
Got his guy Rome drafted top 10. That helped. I mean, there was good players around. Jalen McMillan looks like a good
he does.
NFL player, and I think
that's because his quarterback was an MVP candidate.
That's true. Baker Mayfield brought it back around. Russell Wilson, by the way, already doing pressers saying that he expects to be the Giants' starting quarterback, that this team's looking for someone to lead them in every way in the offseason, in the season, in their habits, and establish a winning culture.
He better win. That dude behind him is going to be ripping darts. And
I know.
People are going to be asking for it.
That very much is I'm marking my territory. You better know, Jameis, what's going on. I do like that the first Russell tweet that he sent out was a picture he clearly took from his iPhone that day of MetLife Stadium while he was like at the facility or whatever. I don't know.
Do you think,
or maybe he just took it off of Google Images? I don't know.
Because Russ used to have that extensive social team. Like, I'm wondering, is that still something that he's doing, or you think he's?
You think he's cut back, that he has a screaming need for?
No, I just
more social coordinator work.
Yeah, he's just running it himself.
Speaking of which, we got some hot social coming out. Chris Babona, who works on our social, says that his cut of Colleen Wolfe's performance on our previous episode is his masterwork, his magnum opus. So check that out wherever you can get Colleen Wolfe's socials, which I would guess would be Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky. All right, let's get out of here. Good week here on NFL Daily. Appreciate you, Patrick.
No, appreciate you, Greg.
We will be back in your feed next with Daniel Jeremiah and 40s and free agents. And yes, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the blue screen of death with the frowny face. It's actually not making me feel like football is back.